All right, all right, all right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Bison, aka Bison Trades, over on Twitter, and welcome back to another episode of RareFUD Radio. Today's episode is going to be fantastic. We have a very special guest on today. We have Ivan from Mindfolk. If you guys don't know about Mindfolk, they're one of the more OG projects coming in from um, about January of 2022. Um, yo, um, in 2022. And yeah, they're one of the OG projects in my eyes. I love the art. We're going to talk a little bit about the story. We're going to talk about their background and the upcoming renaissance. So stay tuned for that. But as always, we will get into some market summary, some market news, then jump right into the show. Joining me as always is my wonderful co-host, Dorian. Dorian, how you doing today, my man? Can't hear you, Dor.
Oh, yo, let's go. My bad. Got too excited. Had myself on mute. But anyway, dog, every day's a holiday, and I'm happy to be here, man. I'm super happy to have Ivan on today as well.
Yeah, it's a blast. So, anyways, joining us as well is going to be our wonderful co-host Joe. Joe, how you doing today, man?
How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? We're doing great, man. I'm excited to talk to my folk today, Ivan, man. See what's going on, cooking in that ecosystem. See how they've, chosen to navigate being, top of the project during the bull, and then now kind of coming in as a sleeper for the bear and back into the bull. So it's going to be a really cool story to hear. So I'm excited, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I love having them on. Dude, Mindfolk, it's one of those arts that just always stuck around with me. I love their art so much. We'll get into it in a second. I'll be a fanboy with Ivan when he gets on here. But in the meantime, let's talk a little bit about the market. So we are seeing a little stagnation in NFTs. We're seeing a ton of drawdowns in Solana floor prices, which is what happens when we run up from $8 to about $24. You should be expecting that. So, just a little heads up. We did talk about this. Aggressive profit taking was key. Taking out loans to hedge your bets if you wanted to. Maybe you had an NFT you really like, but you weren't sure about the downside. You can loan it out. I did that with a ton of my Clanosaurs, my SMB. Proved to be very fruitful because now I can choose if I want to keep that particular NFT or just let it default, and I'll just keep all the liquidity I got from the loan. So, yeah, it's crazy times in NFTs, but I think once we kind of stable out on price, that's when we'll start seeing NFTs play catch up on Solana floor price. We are looking at about 242K. Guys, I want your opinion. How are we feeling about the market right now? We'll go with Dor first and then Joe.
Yeah, man, I'm feeling pretty good overall. Like it's not a surprise. We've been talking about it for a couple weeks now about when Sol's price increases, we're going to see a pullback across all NFT floors. They typically rebound, but we knew this was going to happen. You've been talking about, Bison, you got to make sure you take profits when we expect Sol to pump. And it's like, or when it's pumping, start taking out loans aggressively because these floors are going to pull back like 20, 30%. And we definitely saw that happen. Does this mean we're in a bear market of NFTs? I don't know yet. Probably not. But right now I've been purchasing a couple things because prices decrease. I can get into that in the alpha portion. But yeah, overall, I feel great about Solana's price. Your boy's up over 2x. I remember when everybody was miserable in the Solana market. Sol's going to $2. But here on RareFUD, guess what? Whole time we've been saying, Sol's below 15, I'm buying every day. Sol's below 10, I'm buying every day. Sol's at 8, guess who's buying multiple Sols every day? And guess who's at like a 3x, almost a 3x, oh no, over a 3x right now. Anyway, yes, I'm feeling hella good, dog. Market's doing great. I just want to continue pumping back to 30. I never thought I would be so happy to see a $30 Solana again, but potentially. But yeah, man, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good overall.
That's right. Joe, I know you've been chopping it up with me as far as TA goes. My attention has been almost solely focused on price action right now. And just looking at everything, dude, Solana looks good right now. Right now it's Chop City, but I do think we go into a continuation up towards 26 is my price target and hopefully break it and hold that. I kind of want to go over to you. How are you feeling about the market right now?
Yeah, man, I'm feeling good. It's following the plan that I've always said is that, when Sol was dropping how it was and we were playing in the sandpit, there's going to be a direct correlation for a little bit. If Sol started rising, we would see floor price start rising as well. But then there's a pivot point that happens where the inverse starts to happen and you see floor prices drop and Sol keep going up. That is the funky right part where you have to kind of manage your positions and trust your gut and get out with the compounded SOL that you did, right? You bought into these NFTs to compound that SOL, and then you have to extract that SOL in order to capitalize on the USD price of Solana going up. So like that's the really hard part, and it's the puzzle piece to play. But that's why loans are so important, all these other things, because you can kind of base your risk management and how you want to do it if you don't want to sell everything off. So I'm happy about the market because it's going how RareFUD has planned to play it. So yeah, I'm all in.
Yeah, I mean it's played out to a T, and I figured it would. I wish I was aggressively taking profits. I wish I had just sold everything, right? But you can't time the market like 100% of the time, and it's really hard. You realize how liquid some of these positions are. So, just make sure next time we run up, we have a nice volatility. When you're taking a position on an NFT, and I've been saying this a lot lately, you are basically playing it for stability, right? You are banking on the price of Solana being stable. So if you're taking a long position on it, you're banking on it being kind of boring. Solana's just ranging for a little bit. Where are people going to turn? They're going to turn to NFTs for profits. And so when you figure out that relationship, that's when you can be a really maximal trader. If you're an investor, just know that a lot of these projects, if you found a really good investment thesis, they will likely catch up in Solana price. We're just waiting for volatility to kind of chop rather than, rapidly move up or down. So it's kind of the basis of the market. But other than that, we've seen some nice moves. Bonks continues to do crazy things. Pilots has been releasing some trailers. They look really good. I mean, the market's still moving, and I think we are primed for a really good bull run in NFTs. It's just right now, everybody's attention is on the price of SOL, right? When you run up 200+%, that tends to be where a lot of attention is. So, guys, any last remarks on market overview before we get into Mindfolk and bring up Ivan?
No, man, I'm excited to talk to Ivan. We can get after it, dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
well, let's go ahead and bring up. Yeah.
Oh,
what's up?
Sorry,
Joe?
I was just going to say real quick tidbit for people. Okay, I know we see traders on YouTube on the comments. Guys, if we see that pullback to a higher low, those will be great entries for NFTs. You'll see a quick panic dump as well. And remorse will kick in once Solana gets that higher low and keeps going. People go, oh, I missed out. That's your entry on SOL. So don't go FOMOing yet. Be calm and quiet and wait on it. And I think we'll have a good entry here soon.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're 100% right. And dude, I'm so excited for today's guest. I love Mindfolk. And just hearing, so we got to talk to him a little bit on the dojo space with Cyber Samurai not too long ago. And Ivan clearly still has passion, especially like the projects that were around in January of last year. Most of them are not here anymore. So when you see somebody who continues to want to grind and hustle in this space, really take the lessons they learned on the original come up and reapply it to what is going to be beneficial for the longevity of the project, it gets me going. So without further ado, let's get up Ivan. Ivan, how you doing today, my man?
Yo guys, what's up, man? I really appreciate you having me up here. First thing I want to say is I like all the chops. Even when you guys talking about the market, chopping it up. Yeah, it's good to be here.
That's right. I mean, it's Chop City right now, man. So could not come on a better time. Solana's chopping. We're chopping over here. Mindfolk is definitely chopping with your upcoming Renaissance. So before we get into that, because I'm really excited to talk about kind of the future plans for the project, and what you guys have done with the mint capsules and everything like that. Let's talk a little bit about yourself, Ivan. Let's give a brief intro into Mindfolk, kind of the origins of it, and what you guys are planning. So let's go ahead and start off with you, Ivan.
Cool, yeah. So just a brief background of myself. I was actually just in the spaces talking about it, but I got into blockchain because of the arbitrage that was happening in South Africa. The local exchange, there was like a 10 to 20% arbitrage that was happening for about a 2-year period. And so that was my first introduction into blockchain. I didn't really know much about crypto at that stage, other than that, you can make, internet money from it. And so and that was introduced to me by one of my partners at Mindfolk, which is Sigmundo. And so the Mindfolk team is made up of 5 South Africans. We all have been close friends basically since high school. We've worked on Web2 projects together, mostly e-commerce related, SaaS businesses. And my first introduction to Solana specifically, we started talking about different kinds of blockchain type projects when NFTs were happening in 2017. Sigmundo had already started working on a project back then already. And I was always interested, but I was still doing my postgrad studies. And I wanted to get involved. And at that time, it didn't really make sense for me. And so after that, obviously the massive crash came and NFTs kind of disappeared after that 2017 period. And it was in 2021 or more end of 2020 that we'd first heard about Solana, or at least Sigmundo had, and he told me about it. And he was like, hey, you heard about this blockchain and there might be some cool stuff happening there. And so we got into DeFi originally as Solana had launched. I think Radium was the first big DeFi project on Solana, and we kind of dabbled a bit and we got burnt and we learned some hard lessons, but it was a lot of fun as well. And yeah, we just kind of kept following the progress of Solana. And I think it was in probably about 3 or 4 months after that, mid 2021, that we entered into the first Solana hackathon as a South African team. And our project was actually focused on remittance. So in Africa, there are various countries where moving funds between countries is quite challenging. And obviously, Solana offers quite a direct solution to that problem. And so that was our first ever project that we submitted. I can't remember exactly. I think we came in like the top 5 or top something for the African division within that specific hackathon. And then from there, we just kept working. We kept working on the remittance for a while. And then it was in that July, August period that we'd heard of the Metaplex standard being created for NFTs on Solana. And that's when things really started coming together, because like my whole history, I've always been surrounded by creatives, whether it's in the music industry or artists. It's just, I'm just more inclined that way. And so, when NFTs came about in Solana, it just made a lot of sense for us to start thinking about how we could get involved in the NFT space. And yeah, my first mint was Thugbirds, and we were pretty closely connected to the NFT space by that stage. We were watching projects start, and obviously, it was like a crazy run. I still didn't understand a lot of it in the beginning. Trying to explain it now to other people, it makes a lot of sense why they look at me in a really weird way, because now it's like so native to us. We've been in the space for a while, and NFTs are so normal, and like having a wallet on Phantom and connecting to all these different services is pretty normal for us. But yeah, the origins of Mindfolk, we'd seen these projects started, and we wanted to, our first goal was, how do we create a project where we can be a top market cap and we can have a super high floor price? So that was like our initial strategy. Like, what do we do? So the first things we thought was lower supply, because just after that period where there was quite a run between the August and November of 2021, there were a lot of projects that were minting out, but you could basically just launch anything you wanted and it minted out. And then there was kind of a lull, sort of October, November, and that was when we started, like, we'd approached Jurgens, who's another good friend of ours in South Africa. He's the artist for Mindfolk, and we immediately knew, like, this is the guy. His art is very unique. As you guys can see, our attributes, Mindfolk has one of the most exceptionally unique IPs. Like, everything about our collection, there's no influence, and I think that's a cool thing, because he was not part of the Web3 space. He'd never seen an NFT collection. We basically sat down with him. We were like, these are how layers work. This is what an attribute is. Like, can you draw up something for this? So he had no idea that laser eyes and, specific kinds of glasses and hats and these attributes were part of NFT collections. He'd never seen a bake. He'd never seen something before this. And so he came with a completely unique way of creating generative art. And I think that's what made us really stand out when we started Mindfolk. But yeah, as I was saying, one of the things we did is we thought, okay, the market's not exactly as pumped as it was before, so let's do a low supply collection, because obviously that gives way to faster floor price movements if the demand is there. And then we took a lot of inspirations from projects like CyberKong's Kaiju Kings, and then shortly after we'd basically finished the art for Mindfolk, there was the Boryoka Dragons. We'd seen, they were the #1 market cap project on Solana when we launched Mindfolk, and they were for a month before and probably a month or two after. And what we did with Mindfolk that was different. So when we launched, we actually had on our website, if you don't dig the art, don't mint. We mentioned we had no roadmap. We had no selling point. It was basically like, guys, this is a cool PFP project, and that's it. And that's the way that we marketed ourselves. We had 200 people in our Discord when we minted. And there were some really cool, unique things that we did. So, for example, our developer did this to prevent bots from minting too many. He had this reverse capture. So you had to, this like long 11-letter like word would come up, and then you had to write it backwards. And I remember like people were like, "What? This is so weird." But it was a lot of fun. And so, yeah, we minted 31st of December 2021. It was like a New Year's mint, basically. And yeah, by the end of the 1st of Jan, our floor price went from, because we minted for 1 Sol, the end of the first day was on 4 Sol. And by the end of January, we've been writing all these articles recently. We'll get to that, but that's why I got all this information nice and fresh. But by the 27th of Jan, our floor price was 250 Sol, and I think Sol was at like 120 or something. So our floor price had gone to like almost $20,000 from minting at 1 Sol, which is pretty wild. And so we had taken the influence from CyberKongs and Kaiju Kings and Boryoka Dragons, and we wanted to do something where we integrated a token, and the token was used in what we describe as like a unique rotation away from breeding. So instead of accumulating a token and using it to make more PFPs or like babies, for your collection, for us, it was about using wood to actually build structures. So like building instead of breeding. So you could like build a cabin, and then once you built a cabin, you could build a boat, and then you could use the boat to explore. And then the exploring was when you then connected to more PFPs, which were the mindlings. And for us, the breeding made a lot of sense because obviously the ultimate goal is to expand on the community. Like that's kind of what we gathered from what we learned from CyberKong's Kaiju Kings and Boryoka Dragons, is that you start with a small collection, and then you slowly grow your collection and your community size through this breeding, in our case, building process. And so that was the ultimate goal with wood, was to accumulate and to build, and then to like basically build out this, what we describe as like a law-based project. So that was our intention. It was going to, we had a law writer, and we had this really cool story about how these founders lived in this Copper's kingdom, and they used this magical wood, and then this magical wood was going to build these things. And yeah, so that's, we also thought about it as like an Age of the Empires kind of style project, where each stage you would get more advanced, and then like more things would happen. And so it was really about like us thinking of the story, and then like extrapolating that into this like actual technical process of like various kinds of staking and use of the token. And yeah, so we had this crazy rise, and then I think it was probably February, March, we were kind of top 5, top 10 market cap on Solana, and then it was probably in about April, May that we started seeing a decline. And then it just started hitting harder and harder because the token meta had kind of dissolved, and Mindfolk was labeled as a Ponzi token-based project. Like that's as blunt as I can be. Like that's what it is. And so during that time frame, something that we struggled with was, one, we had a very small community, so our voice was basically silenced from a community standpoint. And then the team itself, like our values that we hold, was more, you could say, like stoic or equanimous. Like we didn't want to get involved in combat with people that were describing Mindfolk in ways that maybe didn't necessarily fit what our intentions were when we built the project. And I think that was difficult for us because you have these massive 10K community projects where people are talking about your project in their Discord, and they're describing Mindfolk as this Ponzi-based, token-based project that's basically going to zero, and it's some slow rug. And so that process was quite hard for us. And we got to the point where we built all this crazy cool tech. We had this like entire kingdom system with, I mean, we have multiplayer staking where the NFTs themselves play these different roles and change probabilities and timeframes. And, for us, it was like we worked so hard, and it just felt like we were just like everything we did. I remember sharing, like, this is like super bare Mindfolk inside story stuff, but like sharing our what's it called, a trader view graph of our floor price, and showing specific time points and being like, cool, this is when we launched cabins, this is when we launched boats, this is when we launched this, and like literally everything we did was just like down, 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 down. It's like it got to the point where the team was like, okay, we want to. How do we fix this? We can't add more, because the more things we've added, the more complex it's become, and the more difficult it is for people to join the community. And we just kept almost pushing further in the wrong direction. We tried new things, a lot of it didn't work, and so we got to the point, it was last year, probably June, July, where we got to sit down together and just say, okay, guys, like we need to think about this, because we're a bunch of guys, like we're close friends, like we want to keep doing this stuff. We don't want to leave this space. We don't want to rug. We were like, Mindfolk is pretty close to all of us. Like we want this exceptionally unique IP and brand to keep growing with Solana, and as with Web3 as well. And so so there was some very difficult conversations during that time, but basically it came down to, what are the fundamental flaws that Mindfolk has as a project, and like where do we go from here? Like if we were to start from scratch and take the best things about Mindfolk and remove the worst things about Mindfolk and start again, like what does that look like? What is it going to take? How much time do we need? One of the most difficult things in that conversation was, how do you rebrand, or like how do you change the narrative of a project that narrative has never been told by the team itself? Like how do we now change the conversation, change how people perceive Mindfolk in their minds to what we want Mindfolk to be? And so that's basically where the entire Renaissance journey started, which was about 6 or 7 months ago. I don't know if you guys got questions so far.
Yeah, man, I do. Yeah, I have several. Like, go ahead, Bison.
First. No,
all right.
Door first.
Thank you, man. No, so it's great, like having such a flashback to the past, man. Like for those who weren't around during like the October to December time frame, man, you don't know how crazy the staking and baby meta was. Those were the days when like a 2K project was like considered a pretty good size. A 5K, it's like, oh man, is a 5K even going to min out? Like, so it was a completely different time there. So you guys were just adapting to the meta, which is fine. But I was curious about, at which point did you know that people were starting to perceive Mindfolk as a Ponzi staking project? And like, how did Wood affect into like gaining from staking affected? Of course, it helped the project's price ad, but more like from like a perspective from inside the team at the time. It's like, oh man, when you saw like people were only picking up Mindfolk for specifically to farm wood and to sell it, it's like, what did you do? How did that make the team feel? And how has it been for you trying to break this narrative put on the project about just being purely Ponzi staking?
Yeah, that's a great question. So from the team's perspective, it was obviously very difficult because, we wanted people to know that wasn't necessarily the intention. But then the counter argument to that was, that's the best way to win the game. It's like, how can you, if these people are here, in the Web3 space to make money, and, mostly traders, and like, as much as the community aspect is a massive part of Web3, and so is the storytelling, and so is the PFP and the rep and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, people are also here to make money on their JPEGs. If someone's putting $20,000 into a JPEG, they're not just doing that because they think Ivan's got a cool voice. It's like there's more to that. They believe in some potential in the future. And the game we had created, without necessarily doing it intentionally or knowingly, was built in a way that selling your token when Wood was pumping was the best thing you could do to make money, because you have a bunch of super loyal guys in our community, and I guess you could say like whales, that come into this project. They really love the art. they're buying up all the wood so that they can build these cabins, they can build these boats, but then that's driving up the price of wood, so wood prices getting driven up. And the people that are just accumulating wood on the side, that don't necessarily, and also because we made the sub collections so limited in collection size, like 333 cabins, 222 boats. If you have 777 NFTs, not everybody's going to be able to build. So what's going to happen with the rest of that wood token? You got to have some sort of demand for some utility outside of just building. So we just kept making more things to build and putting pressure on wood within our own ecosystem, as opposed to making wood something that people could use outside of the ecosystem. So the counter argument in retrospect for us is that, cool, this is our intention, but that's not how people played the game. So you can't, you literally can't hate the player. It is what it is. Like, those dudes did what they thought was the best thing to do at that time, which was to sell the token and take profit. And we don't have any negative feelings towards them because of that. But at the time, it was obviously having a super negative impact on the project because it was driving the price of wood down. So yeah, it was difficult to have those conversations because, when someone brings up the opposite side of the argument, there's nothing for us to be like, oh, well, you should be loyal and not sell your token. It's like, no, if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. It's our responsibility as the project founders to either provide enough utility for the token, or to find a better solution to the problem. It's almost like the way we would describe it from the team side was like plugging holes in a boat. The boat's sinking and the water's leaking, but you just keep plugging. You're like, okay, cool, we're going to build this now. And then, we'd fulfilled our initial roadmap, our internal team roadmap, within 6 weeks of starting Mindfolk. And then we were like, oh shit, this is a runaway train. This is going way faster than what we can build, or way faster than we can keep up with. Which it's kind of like a double-edged sword. It's like really cool. Floor price go up, everybody happy. But, in our minds, we're like, this is sinking and we need to do something about it. And I honestly do believe, this is also a contentious point, but I do believe that at some point in the future, maybe there is going to be a project that's going to figure it out. You had like I said, Cyberkongs, Kaiju Kings, Broker Dragons, Mindfolk, perfect examples of how this token breeding style projects that did all do well at a certain point in time, but then ended up, falling pretty hard. I do think maybe sometime in the future, someone might figure out some sort of sustainable economical balance, with the token. But that it wasn't us, and it wasn't our time to do so. But yeah, so it was very difficult from our end. We didn't want to get involved in the conversation in a way that came off as combative or defensive, because we just thought, okay, we need to find a solution. There's no point in telling people that the way they perceive the project is incorrect, if they have a pretty justified argument to think so. So that's kind of from the team side how we felt about it. And that's also why, we realized there was, in that time frame of what we learned from when we launched Mindfolk to now, there was just so much learning that went on. We went through all these crazy experiences. And I remember with the whole thing of small collection versus big collection, a big part of our decision making was we would go into these big DAOs, which are not really DAOs. Everybody was calling their project a DAO, these 10K collections. But it was, the community management aspect for us was just insane to imagine. It was wow, 10,000 people in a Discord. That's crazy. How are we going to manage that? How are we going to bring all these people together under one single brand and move this project forward? And so for us, it was an easy decision to be let's start small, and then we grow. And then as we grow, we learn and we get better at managing the community. And so that's why now, a year later, 10K collection is it's for us, that's pretty standard. I think thinking long-term, if you really want to be a project that's going to be around for a long time in the future, I think bigger collections, depending on what your intentions are, not that all small collections don't have that capability, but it's a very specific kind of niche thing. There's very few small collections, and they have a very specific purpose, whether it's art driven or whether it's you've got your Boogles and you've got your Ladaos and you've got those kinds of communities. They're very purpose built. And so I think if you're going for something bigger than that, in terms of market cap and really trying to grow and expand a brand in Web3, you're going to have a decent sized collection and a unified collection.
No, I agree with you. Your point on the collection size. The landscape is completely different now, and one of the differences that are the most notable is the collection size for smaller collection size are mostly on one-of-one artists now. Like you don't see any of those couple hundred anymore, like generative things. No, those are usually, you have well-known artists doing a set of 100 or a limited set of 50, and that's your smaller communities. While things such as like when you're in the less than 5,000 range is usually some type of utility play where you don't need this massive collection size. So your Wise Wells, your UGSs. And then when you want to have that community-based project, it has to be around 10K these days. Like, I don't know of any community-based project doing less than 10K, but that's kind of a positive thing because it shows the progression of the Solana ecosystem, where we considered 5K back in the day massive. Now it's just like, if you're doing 10K, it's like, that's expected. And it's also one of the other positive things is like, I love seeing these smaller communities gather around certain one-of-one artists, which really allows you to connect with people on a closer level. That's why you typically see these sub-DAOs across many collections. But yeah, it's while things are different, I think things are moving in a positive direction.
Yeah, thanks, man. The entire Renaissance process was a big deal for us. We spent a lot of time working on this. Sorry, you got another question there.
Yeah, no, I kind of just wanted to agree with you, Ivan, in the sense that like you were playing into that and you played it so well too, because I mean, Mindfolk was we saw it with the floor price and everything. It was the smaller collections, and we saw it too with like Tayo. We see it with some of the other ones. Boryoku again was another smaller collection where it was like 2,000, 1,500. You guys were 777, and that was what was popping back then. Like that's what it was. Like Dor said, I mean, anything over 5K, we didn't have 10K collections. The only one we saw was Degen Ape, and I mean, besides that was it until I think D-Gods came around. It really was like taboo to do anything over 5K. So, it was just. It's crazy to see how much the market's matured. And you're absolutely right. You guys got into the nitty gritty, and we didn't have this all figured out in Solana NFTs. And I think it's so imperative that you guys stuck around and you're like, okay, how do we learn from it? How can we remedy it? But a lot of people saw what was happening because they're like, well, we'll just play into the meta. We'll have the original collection size. We'll expand it somehow. Houses, boats, Gen 2, Gen 3, whatever it looks like, we'll introduce some breeding mechanics. We'll introduce a token because that was normal. The problem with the token was always, and we see it too, like I do business development for Remnants and Longwood Labs. Like we see it, our player base is capped because our collection size is capped because that's the meta, right? We can't have like unlimited mints or anything like that. Because if you could keep expanding the collection size, with your native token, like you have to burn the token in order to mint the next NFT collection. Well, that's great. It's really good for the users and stuff like that. You get to expand it, but it keeps going back to the original collection owners, the ones who bought in early and continue to get the next, like what was supposed to be for expansion ends up just being, they get more and more. The rich get richer almost. If you ask for soul, it's like your community got fudded, right? Like you can't do another collection. They're like, well, wait, what about, original collection owners? Then you have to give them whitelist allocation. And you're like, well, how do I properly expand this ecosystem? And it's tough. I still think a lot of people are trying to figure it out in a proper way that rewards old holders or the original believers in the project versus, trying to onboard the next wave of users into your ecosystem. So, I think I commend you guys, one, because you guys did you guys did an incredible job. One, I love the Mindfolk art so much. I was saying top 3 generative collection easy in Solana because there's nothing that was topping it. There were so many derivatives back then, which the more derivatives you had, the more you knew your art was like top tier. And you guys had so many. I traded so many derivatives back in the day. That was like Pixel Folk. It was
Pixel Folk.
Like Mindfolk or something like that. Like, dude, so many popped up and it was wild to see, but you guys were like at the forefront of it. So, dude, I will never forget that those were glory days, but I'm excited to see what you guys have planned coming up because I think, like you said, it's this higher collection size that really plays into the community and brand place that you guys are really striving for. And I think you guys kind of figured that out. Hats off to you guys for not rugging. I mean, I know Dorian knows this as well because Cyber Samurai like easily could have rugged, but instead just decided to keep pushing and go with the Gen 2. You guys didn't. You guys could have easily said, well, we'll just take the lessons we learned with this one and we'll make another mint. You guys are like, no, we'll figure out some way, some shape and form. Which brings us to our next point. Let's talk about the Renaissance, right? So we have these mint capsules now. Can you kind of explain what's going to happen and how you guys are going to achieve a higher collection size?
Yeah, for sure. So some of the thinking behind that, like you were saying now, one of the constraints was we want to keep working on Mindfolk for sure. So how do we solve this problem in the best way that we can? And the way the Renaissance is working is that all of the collections have now been turned into these capsules, and the ultimate goal is that all of this is going to become one single, unified, simplified collection. So from the art perspective, we took all the art that Jurgen's created in the entire Mindfolk journey, which is from January until end of last year. That includes every sub collection, the boats, the cabins, the skateboards, the surfboards, the pirates. And we took all the most loved attributes and all the unique pieces from those specific collections, and we unified them all into one single extension of the founders. So like our founders is obviously our OG collection, the 777. Those 777 are still going to be in the new 10K collection, each one of the 777 as they are. So that's mint capsule 1. And also all these attributes have been inspired by these sub collections. So there's like some crazy pipes and hats. It really isn't an art upgrade. It's an extension and expansion of the original OG founders. And so the capsules, it's a little complex, and obviously the whole purpose of the Renaissance is to move into simplicity. Have a single 10K collection. Like, you want to join Mindfolk, this is the collection page. Like, that's it. But we have to go through this last few layers of complexity. We try to simplify it as much as possible with the capsules, but it is still a lot for some people. So it's hard to explain. But basically, tier 1s are your original OG founders. Tier 2s are your boats. Tier 3s is cabins and pirates. And tier 4 or pre-sale is a pre-sale that we ran about a month ago. And so what happens is with the tier 1s, you get your original OG founder airdrop to you on mint day, and then you also get to mint another NFT from the Renaissance collection on mint day. The tier 2s is just 2 mints, and then tier 3 is 1 mint, and the pre-sale is 1 mint. But when we did the pre-sale, which was about a day or two after we turned the capsules into, or turned the collections into capsules, we added a whole bunch of cool perks. So for example, if you have a tier 1 capsule and you own a pre-sale, or if you have a tier 2 and you own a pre-sale, or if you have a tier 3 and you own a pre-sale, there's different perks. So tier 1 and tier 4, or tier 1 and pre-sale is the best combination, because then you get the OG founder and 3 mints instead of just 2. And for tier 2 and 3 and a pre-sale, it's just an extra whitelist for the mint. So that's how the capsules work. There's 2 collections, obviously, for the capsules. There's the whitelist capsules. So the surfboards and skateboards are just whitelist. And then the mint capsules are, the lowest is a mint and the highest is multiple mints, depending on what you own.
Right. I think you did a really good job of making it comparable to the floor price of what the collections were when you did it. So like, hats off to you again for figuring out that ratio, because it's not hard, especially with 5 tiers. If you guys want to, I'm going to add King Digi's Substack in here into the messages if you guys are watching on YouTube, just so you guys can get a little bit more of like a central hub and follow along on some of the stuff. Because when you're explaining 5 tiers, it's much easier to do so if you have a visual in front of you. And there is a good video by Mindfolk talking about the trading capsules in that Substack. So yes, Ivan, I appreciate so much that you guys are striving for a 10K collection. You guys have some other cool things coming up in the Renaissance as well. Let's talk a little bit about your marketing studio and State of One and the DAO Mine. There's so much to dig into. Let's go ahead and start with DAO Mine first. Then we'll talk about State of One, which is the first proposal, and we'll kind of work in from there.
Yeah, sure. So DAO Mine, when we started Mindfolk, we never called ourselves a DAO. We never tried to be a DAO. We didn't even, for us, it was kind of just this word that was used to describe a Discord community. There wasn't really any actual this decentralized organization happening. And so we didn't try and describe ourselves as that. We had a very close connection with, or at least conversations going with our community during the entire process. Having a small community allowed us that, but it was pretty difficult for us because even if you have 300 to 400 people in your Discord and you're busy releasing features or you are talking about possible features in the future, those conversations are hard to have because it's easy for someone on the outside to be like, cool, well, you should change this or you should add that or you should adjust this because they don't consider, like, for example, dev time, resources, those kinds of requirements, which makes it pretty difficult to just execute on everyone's ideas, especially when you have a diverse range of ideas as well. So for us, having that feedback and that communication open with our community was super important. But at the same time, it kind of made things difficult as well because it made us constantly think like, okay, we're going to pivot this way or we're going to adjust our original plan this way, or, and that made it extremely difficult for us to move at the pace that we needed to as well. And also to keep everybody happy. So, we were never a DAO. We as a team, we made the executive decisions. We made the last call. There was no, we controlled the treasury. We decided on basically everything. And that was how we ran Mindfolk. And, during that process, what we started to realize was that there's all these amazing ideas in the community. We can't execute on all of them. And some of them are really cool ideas as possibly standalone projects. Like these guys are giving us suggestions that we're like, wow, that's actually a super cool idea, but we can't execute on that because we're either busy with what we're doing or there's no resources. It's just, it was very difficult for us. And so that's what started leading us to thinking more about an actual DAO. Like, how do you solve that problem? How do you put yourself in a position where the user or the holder becomes responsible for their suggestions? Because it's easy to just be like, oh yeah, do this or add this or change that. But it's different if you give them a criteria and you say, okay, this is the rubric. We want to know how long, how much resources, how much like time and money and what do you need for this idea to be realized? How long, those are very important because all of a sudden it's like now it went from a suggestion to basically putting a business plan together that you propose towards the community. Because now you have to actually think about your idea like a lot more in detail than just offering a suggestion. And so
I'm sorry, dog, but you ain't never lied, man. Like, I love our community, but sometimes we get suggestions and I'm like, dog, do you know how much execution, and do you even think this is possible to execute right now? Like, yeah, I know blockchain is a revolutionary technology, but dog, you thinking about something like 50 years into the future. Like, I would love to do most of the things the community suggests because they are really, really good suggestions. However, it's just like, I don't think the execution of these suggestions gets thought out well. And then some community members come back at the team and it's like, oh, I suggested you guys improve on this and you haven't done anything yet. It's like, yo, we're working on limited resources, limited people on the team. And it's like trying to execute this one small idea that might not really move the floor price much. It's like, so it's a lot to consider. So I like what you guys are doing over there with putting more responsibility on like the individual to like come up with the idea and then properly execute it than like just getting yelled at for not doing what people tell you to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's nothing, there's no bad vibes between the person who's making the suggestion and the team. It's just like exactly what you're saying. It's like you guys, it's easy to stand on the outside and be like, oh, this is the solution to the problem. And everybody's got their own solution, and a DAO, essentially an actual decentralized organization and on-chain governance provides a solution that where people, number one, like you said, the individuals now have the responsibility to actually put a proper plan together, a proper proposal, and then it goes to a proper vote, all on chain, all governed. And, during the Renaissance, when these ideas started coming about, we had someone in our community and he's had a lot of experience in Ethereum and really appreciate all he's been a super pivotal part of like our progress, and his suggestions have been really great. And he basically had a call with me, and I never forget, it was like a week period where he was like, just like, let's get on a call. And then obviously I'm like, oh, I'm busy, I get on a call. And then eventually he's like, just, let's have a call. We get on the call and he takes me through like a whole bunch of like really epic examples. He's like, check this and look at this. And like, here's Nouns DAO and here's Juicebox and he has all these like these DAOs on Ethereum with big money and big political goals. Like these guys are actually making progress in terms of building decentralized autonomous organizations. Like they especially with Ethereum, it's like decentralized maxis, so started looking at these examples, and thinking, wow, like this actually can work. Like here are examples where this does work, and that's where I went down the rabbit hole on-chain governance and started thinking, okay, if we're going to turn this Mindfolk story around, what is going to be the primary purpose of it, and community empowerment was such a big part of that just because of our previous experience, being able to put proposals together, give community members the opportunity to be able to put proposals together. And that also stemmed from the idea or the thinking of, we always say we're early, and we're not the earliest. Now Solana's been around for 2 years, and so blockchain's been around for longer than that. But I would say that the audience that we are right now is still made up of majority either innovators or early adopters. So you have a lot of people with great ideas, a lot of people who are still going to build the next biggest project on Ethereum or Solana. And so how do we facilitate that? How do we build a system, and what should we be focusing on to make that happen? And on-chain governance was the first thing that came to mind. It was like, okay, cool. Solana has DAOs, but how many people are actually focusing on on-chain governance as a system, as an economical or political system that can make progress within decentralized organizations? And so that's when it became very obvious to us that the DAO mind was going to be at the center of the Renaissance. That's how we're going to be able to connect with our community. If we focus on these tools and we can make progress on-chain governance, then we can empower our community to be able to execute on those ideas and to work with them. And so, yeah, that's the whole story of DAO Mind.
Yeah, Doug. Sorry, Bison, if you want to jump in real quick, I feel like I've been jumping in a lot. So I just wanted to hit on a whole thing about DAOs again. It's like you hit on back in like January, everybody and their mama was calling themselves a DAO. No, it wasn't anything close to a DAO. That was just like the thing to do back then. Fortunately, we transitioned away from that, but we are starting to see, and I'm glad you observed it and implemented in the Mindfolk, is this blend of centralized decentralization. Like you usually had this head figure at the leading the project, but it's also up to the community to support that project as well. I hit on this all the time. Like communities are too reliant on founders to pump their bags. Guess what? If you want your bags to be pumped, you need to be out there as much as the founder shilling that project. And one of the best ways to do this is through DAOs. And it's up to the project founders to support those DAOs in whatever activities they want to do. While you're doing this through your way, an example similar to that is in Cyber Samurai. While Shake is the founder, it's like we have different DAOs within Cyber Samurai, specifically Pepe DAO, who receives a portion of the royalties from the trades. So it's like, look, it's in their interest to continue to promote Cyber Samurai, specifically the Pepe brand, because they're getting royalties from that. And we have on-chain governance, or at least we have a multi-sig wallet for the Pepe Council to decide how to distribute out liquidity or Pepes or Sush or any other form for competitions they host, which gives, and I think better aligns the community and gives them the resources to execute on these plans to help the overall brand.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's like, first of all, I feel like decentralization is paved with a lot of centralized solutions. Like we're not there yet. There's a lot of progress that still needs to be made. And, the brand needs to live on through the community. We can't be the Mindfolk team like we were, in the first 6 months of Mindfolk, building at an insane pace. And basically like, every week a different member's burnt out, and it's just like crazy stressful. It's like, you need to be able to like build, the idea of a DAO, is basically to build this system where everybody in the community becomes a founder. Like everybody's responsible for the future of this brand. And it doesn't necessarily mean that every decision is just based on how do we make Mindfolk as a single project better, but how do we take the Mindfolk brand and build cool shit, whether it be in Web 2 or Web 3, like whatever it may be. And I think on-chain governance is the solution for that. And I think there's so much progress to be made there. Like, we know we're not claiming that we're going to, like DAO Mind is going to be the ultimate solution. Eventually we would love it to be, but it's going to take time, but we want to be focusing on this. We want to make progress in this space, specifically on Solana.
Yeah, no, it's always funny seeing, like Dorian was saying, what people consider DAOs is not just a Discord, right? And I'd say one of the only ones that I know of that I participated in is Monkey DAO. With like that feels like the true DAO, or at least the most complete form of it right now. And I think a lot of people can learn a lot from it. Like Dor was saying, though, it's finding that striking balance of centralized decisions so you can be agile and make quick pivots whenever you need to, because sometimes, a lot of people don't vote, you don't meet quorum or anything like that. But you need to make these pivotal decisions. So it kind of helps. It's finding that striking balance of centralized decision making so you can make agile decisions versus decentralized ones that, kind of direct where we want the vision of the project going, what proposals we decide to fund and everything like that. Kind of want to kick it over to you real quick, Ivan. I know you're talking about funding proposals and want to get your opinion on that. Obviously, we haven't had royalties enforced for a while. I know we're still working on things. I know Metaplex came out with a new standard that some of the projects are switching to. In order to fund these proposals, how are you going to do so? Is it going to be like a portion of your marketing agency and your art and everything like that with State of One and whatnot goes into kind of a DAO wallet, a multi-sig wallet, where you guys then decide what to fund on proposals? Or how is that going to work?
Yeah, so from our Renaissance Mint, that's going to go, we're going to have a specific amount dedicated towards the treasury just to get going. And then State of One, as you mentioned, is our first proposal. And the idea is that every project that gets built out of the Mindfolk ecosystem has a certain portion of the revenue that comes back into the project. So that's the ultimate goal, to keep the treasury growing. I mean, growing the treasury is a massive part of running it out, so. And that's basically gonna be based on the quality of projects that get proposed and the potential for them to bring revenue streams back into the Mindfolk community. So State of One is something that we started. It was probably about a month or so after we started Mindfolk. Obviously we'd had a lot of success with Mindfolk, and our whole journey with Jurgens, our artist, was really exciting. Jurgens, before he got involved with Mindfolk, was working at this market in one of the small coastal towns in South Africa and selling art, basically, on a little shop every weekend, like this farmer's market. It's a beautiful place in South Africa, and that was kind of his life. We got him into Mindfolk and got him into Web3, and it changed his life for the most part. He's now been able to move into Cape Town, and so that entire process for us was unique, and we enjoyed it, and we thought, okay, how do we replicate that? Like, how do we do that in the future for other artists? Like, how do we find artists and promote them and get them involved in Web3? And so initially, State of One did start off as more of an idea around a marketplace, but we started building the marketplace, and obviously we were so busy with Mindfolk, to be able to build a marketplace, and especially at that time, the marketplace space was just so competitive. And so what we thought of was, how do we do something unique that relates to that experience with Jurgens? And State of One has now, over this past year, transformed into this concept of taking a single artist and focusing on one artist at a time, and basically putting them in the best possible position to be able to thrive within the Web3 space. So that could be, it doesn't necessarily mean like we're focusing on just one-on-one art, or we're focusing on just trying to get this artist known for single pieces. It's about, like, where does this artist fit in the bigger picture? Even if it's not necessarily Solana, maybe we come across an artist that might thrive on something like Art Blocks, or we might find an artist that might be better on Super Rare, or someone that's going to thrive on Exchange art. So we do have a relationship with Exchange, Exchange.art. We are going to be using their smart contracts initially, because it just makes a lot of sense. We want to build these dynamic one-of-one galleries. So the gallery itself for each artist. So let's say we have an artist that we spend 6 weeks on at a time, and in that time frame we do everything bespoke. So they get their own marketplace, their own website. Everything is just for them, like a solo exhibition in real life. It's all focused on them, and the marketing campaigns are tailored for them as well. So we're thinking along the lines of, I don't know if you guys have heard of like Mischief. Obviously a lot of people are speaking about them, like viral style marketing. So for someone like Jurgens, it could be like, getting someone like Nick, what's that guy from, I can't even remember now, man. That guy at called The Office. I think it's The Office. And he likes to chop wood. Anyway, getting someone like, a famous dude on a podcast and talking about chopping wood, and then selling like a really expensive $50,000 wooden table as an NFT, or, there's a lot of cool things you can do in the Web3 space to get attention around a specific artist or a project. And so that's the idea with State of One, like focus on a single artist and give them the best possible start. And we've already got 2 artists, or 3 artists, including Jurgens. And the first artist is actually, he's 2 years in a row now won World Illustration Championship, but he's like this super humble guy. This dude is the most prolific like illustrator I've ever seen. Like he draws like at an insane pace, and he's just like really stoked to be an artist. So yeah, he's the first guy we're looking at. If you go to state of .1, you can see some of his art. It's pretty wild.
So I have a question, Ivan. Like you've discussed a lot about the DAO and the state of .1. So what other benefits will holders have access to? Are you going to still have the wood token? Are there? I'm not advocating for revenue share. I'm just curious because I know other people might inquire about it. So I wonder what other benefits are holders going to have being once they mint the Renaissance?
Yeah, so the wood token is always going to be Mindfolk's token. We don't have any specific plans to try and pump the token or add any sort of utility in the future. Like if it makes sense that someone brings a proposal forward and they require a token for that proposal to be accepted, or that whatever project that they have in mind requires some use of an SPL, then we will use wood. Wood is also it's not a frozen token, so we could mint more if we wanted to. For example, it's not something, we're not tied to any sort of like value or limitations with it. There are a lot of applications for SPL tokens that make a lot of sense, like even loyalty systems and CRMs, or so I think there might be application for wood in the future, and we will always have wood as our primary token. But there isn't going to be any sort of like wood drops, or like we still have our mining system with like the voyaging, and you can still earn wood through engagement now within our Discord, and you can use that to buy certain things or like earn or use it with raffles and stuff. But that's kind of secondary. I think every project kind of has that in the bag, and it's not really something that I would consider like an actual utility. But the benefits of for example, with something like State of One will be early access. So any of the art or the collections or whatever comes out from the artists that we work with, like our community will obviously get first pick on that. So whatever projects are built from the DAO, our community needs to benefit. Like that needs to be part of the deal, that our community gets first access to those projects as well.
That makes total sense to me. And I think it's fun. Basically you're looking at incubation of sorts, right? I mean, like that's pretty much what you guys are going for. And I love that, because you guys have been around. You guys have seen everything. You've seen the pitfalls. You've experienced it yourself. And so not only can you guide projects, but you can guide artists too. I mean, like your art, I cannot stress it enough, is some of the best on the chain. Like it is so good. I know when I see a Mindfolk piece even pop up on a PFP, just like the smallest little thing on a like I'm looking at some of my tweets and just seeing, you're like, oh, that's a Mindfolk right there. Like it's so easy to pick out. And so, like I said, kudos to you guys for sticking around, really thinking this through and thinking of how we can drive value back to holders. I kind of want to talk a little bit about expansion of holders though, because you have to reward your old holders. How's it going about now? I know you guys have Connect, right? How is your whitelist application process so far? And what do people listening to the show that are interested in applying have to do in order to apply for whitelist?
Yeah, sure. So the Connect application was kind of something that we've always thought about. My background is marketing. It's what I studied and I've been working in e-commerce stores and CRMs and that kind of stuff. So we've always been talking about how do we use blockchain to create a loyalty-based system. And we had originally started using Utility Ape in our Discord about 2-3 months ago, and we thought it was pretty cool, like the engage to earn style. And then we also knew of Dust Labs. We were also in conversations with them about possibly using their scholarship system, but it didn't really make sense. We didn't really align on how it would make sense for us to use that. And so, yeah, we basically decided we were going to build something ourselves that included everything that we needed, which was, something that could give us the ability to curate our community moving forward, and something that could be connected to a loyalty system where community members who are connected to Connect could then engage in our content and become part of the Mindfolk narrative. So there's a whole bunch of really cool features we're thinking about adding to Connect in the future, and white labeling that also as a possible DAO proposal. The process has been pretty wild so far. Like we never expected it to blow up like it has. Within our first week, we've received 43 or 42,000 applications, which is pretty nuts. It's a lot to go through. We've been giving secret codes to various communities and influencers and just people, and even our community, to share with other people. So that allows us to just like streamline from the secret codes. Those kind of act as like a first come, first serve. If you get a secret code and you apply, then we will give like a certain amount of guaranteed spots to each of those codes. But I would say for someone that wants to get into the applications and get accepted, there's various options that you have. So you've got to connect your wallet, that's the given. But then you have, you can connect your Twitter, you can connect you can even connect MetaMask. So we've recently added MetaMask, which is pretty cool as well. And you can connect your Discord, and then you can answer a few questions. And then you get rewarded wood for doing those things, which then goes into Discord, and you can actually accumulate wood through engagement and buy your whitelist if you don't necessarily get accepted through the applications. So it's all a single database that has all this information that we're going to be tracking and using to approve certain people. But I would say the things that stood out just as like I guess a bit of alpha was like guys that are like writing messages to us and, telling us about their experiences in Web3 in like the optional little block at the very bottom of the application. Like, is there anything we should know? Like that stuff stands out, because it stands out when you read someone else's story, and they might even have like 50 followers or 100 followers, but have value to add, So those are applications that have definitely stood out for us for sure.
Well, you guys heard it here first. A little RareFUD alpha for you guys. Make sure you are adding in a little bit of blurb about yourself and your experience in Web3, because I agree with you, Ivan. I think that is one of the things that, I talk with some people. Some people think the application process is kind of drawn out now, and we've already been through it, but I love it personally. I think that the fact that you're able to curate a community rather than, the old whitelist meta of you had to go into a Discord, you had to say, hey, like 5,000 times over, a span, you are on a timer, like you just had to get as many messages as possible. There's no substance in there. And it really valued quantity over quality for the people that literally that was their job. It's grind for whitelists. Then they get to mint. It prints. Everything went 2 to 3+ X after mint, sometimes 10X. And you got to sell, and like people are making a living off of it. That's not how you make an actual community, right? And so the application process, the connect that you guys have, to me, not only does it do that, but it's kind of gamification too of applying with it, right? Like you can buy your whitelist with wood if you really want to get in, or we apply and you can go through the process there. You can buy a mint capsule if you want to. And I think having a variety of ways that appeal to a lot of different people curates a nice balance of community. And so I'm a big fan of it. I love that we're straying away from the whitelist meta of grinding in Discord, because that thing was so played out to me. And I kind of want to let's go ahead and wrap it up here, because we're closing in on the end of our hour here. Let's talk about when is this all happening? You have mint capsules right now. When is this all going to be dropped? Do you have like a estimated date? Because I never like giving hard dates, especially in Web3. We all know how things change. But what's kind of the timeline going forward?
Yeah, so we do have a hard date. It took us a while. We were originally going to try and do it on our first birthday for another New Year's mint, but that was not a great idea at all. So we are minting on the 31st of Jan on Magic Eden. You can check it on the drops tab on Magic Eden. And so how it'll work is 24 hours before the mint itself, there'll be a snapshot taken to see what's in everybody's wallets, to check your combinations and see, because obviously there's going to be a free mint period, then there's going to be a whitelist period, and then possibly a public period as well. So yeah, that's going to happen on the 31st. Snapshot will happen on the 30th. And yeah, that's where we're heading. So get your applications in. The applications will close 24 hours before the snapshot as well. So we will leave them open until then. I think at this very point in time, we've approved about 800 applications out of a possible 4,000. So yeah, still lots of opportunity for guys to get in.
Awesome.
Yeah, I do want to say something on the applications real quick, because D-God's got a lot of hate for this, and other people who have done applications got a lot of hate. I just want to tell the audience, like, look, if you guys do not get accepted on the application, don't get mad at the team. Do a little bit of self-reflection and say, hey, what can I do to make myself better, more prepared for the next application? People get salty because, like, honestly, your floor price is looking pretty solid across all tiers right now. So people get extremely salty when they can't get in that quick 4 to 5x and start blaming you guys because they didn't do something. So to all the audience members out there, if you get rejected, take it as an opportunity to learn and grow, not because the team dislikes you.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah, that was definitely a point that Dor and I were trying to drive home when the whole Ute list and pilots, even pilot list, and all these application processors are coming out. It's like, how do you make? It's just like, how do you make your resume stand out? And this is a Web3 resume of what are you contributing versus taking away from this ecosystem as a whole. So,
Yep.
I'm a big fan of the application process. You said you had 4,000 applications, Ivan.
43,000.
43,000.
43,000?
Yeah, it's just
Like,
crazy.
wait,
What?
43. Dang, dude, that's
Not
crazy.
4,300, 43,000. Holy cow, dude.
Yeah. I mean, so when we launched it, there's the way we launched the system was through. So the difference that we made between existing applications and what we did is we added the referral system, we added the incentive structures. So we didn't make anything compulsory. You didn't have to necessarily answer every question. You didn't have to connect all your socials. You could earn wood by doing it, and then you could share your referral code, and then through the referral code, you could earn more wood. But the way you earn wood through the referral code is if the person that you refer yourself to gets approved. And that's how many applications we've received. We know that there were a lot of guys that had shared our application system in various like closed off crypto Telegram groups with 20,000 people. So we've got a ton of applications. A lot, like I can say transparently, a lot of them are not great. They're just like a bunch of referrals. But that's how many people have been through the system. I would say realistically, looking through the applications, like at least 30 to 40% are like legit Twitter, Discord connected Web3 people, which is pretty rad. Like we super stoked about it.
Amazing, man. That's
Pretty
incredible numbers. I need to talk to you offline about that because that is
Same.
incredible engagement with the application. We will definitely talk offline, but kind of just wanted to wrap up the show. Ivan, I'll give you one last chance for closing statements on the Renaissance coming up. What should people be excited for in the next 6 months? What's like the big pivotal moment that you're like, yo, this is why you need to own a Mindfolk?
Yeah, thanks. So the most exciting thing for me is the DAO Mind. I think that's going to be something that's going to revolutionize on-chain governance within the Solana space. I have no doubt, and we are definitely ready to set a new PFP standard. The art that's being created by Jurgens is, if you guys really like the founders, this is taking it to a new level, and yeah, we're super stoked. The community aspect of Mindfolk is going to be very important for us, and so I think if you have any interest in joining Mindfolk, 31st of December, Magic Eden, get your applications in and come chop it up.
Okay. Dude, I need to get my application in.
Yeah, same, man.
My goodness. Holy cow, Ivan. That is I'm excited for the project already. I've slowly become an art snob in being in Web3. I don't know what it is, but I was never like this way until I started diving into the 101 scene, and then Mindfolk and everything like that just really gave me an appreciation for really good, clean art. And your art is just so good. It's so unique. I have not seen anybody copy it or anything like that. They can't. I mean, it's just so it's so mindful. You know exactly where it came from. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Ivan. This has been nothing but a pleasure. I look forward to seeing what the Renaissance pulls off for you guys, how you guys achieve your vision of on-chain governance, and what proposals you fund, State of One. You guys have a lot to look forward to. And I know the first thing I'm doing after I get off the show is making sure I get my application in. So
I know, right?
Yeah, Joe, I know it's always hard doing interviews with Joe because Joe's off camera. Joe, do you have any questions for Ivan before we sign off here?
No, absolutely not. You guys are beautiful. That was amazing. I was actually a fan just in the audience. You know me, I'm technical analysis. I'm not,
I know.
I'm not the interviewer.
Yep.
So I love it, man. It was beautiful.
Yep.
Ivan, you guys seem like you have, you've tested the time now. You've put in, you've got your praise, then you were, you kind of had your kicks, and now you're coming out on the other hand, and you've taken all of that and you've combined it into what you're going to put out for the public and what you really think is useful and what people are going to need and want. And I think that's smart. And I think people need to invest in founders that have shown that they can stick around no matter if they're getting their flowers or if they're getting kicks, So So big up to you guys, and I hope the best for you guys, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, I just want to say I appreciate you giving us the time to come on and chat about Mindfolk. I'd love to do this again post-mint and have a chat about the Renaissance and what's been going on. So yeah, I appreciate it. Dorian, Bison Trades, Joe Sol, chop, guys.
Chop, chop, man.
Chop, dog.
Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to RareFUD. If you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that little subscribe button down below. Get notified. We do go live every Tuesday, Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We also have all of our episodes uploaded to podcasts. So whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Anchor, if you like to go that route as well. We do shorts on YouTube as well. So if you're trying to look for highlights or clips, we do put those out on occasion as well. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at bisontrades, at Dorian_W. He's got a 3 in there for the culture, and at Joe Sold 212, as well as at RareFUD Radio. You can also find Ivan at Ivan hyphen, and make sure you follow Mindfolk as well at Mindfolk Art. Ivan, it has been nothing but a pleasure. I wish you nothing but the best. You are a friend of the show now. We would love to have you back on once you get through all the mint hype. I know it is just like a roller coaster of emotions once you go through that day. So I'm wishing you the best of luck on the 31st. And chop, chop. Let's get after it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to RareFUD Radio. We'll see you on the next episode Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And have a great rest of your day.